to attend and listen to the meeting through Zoom platform or by phone as indicated on the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meetings are being recorded.
Thank you. That's the one. So we are now in compliance with the governor's rules, and we can move on to item 1 on the agenda. And that's a mixed bag of reports about things that have been happening after our discussions last week, trying to reach out to people. The idea was, I think it was Irwin that started this, trying to build more partnerships and looking at some of the possible places where we could build partnerships. I worked with Pam, and we were both in contact with the Restaurant Association, but then it got a little bit wider than that. Pam, you want to tell everybody a little bit about what these other villages told you? I thought it was really interesting.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I reached back to the contacts that we had made previously with different villages when we were doing our initial monitoring of best practices, at about a year ago. And I talked to Heather Rowe of Libertyville and to John Perillo, who is the assistant village manager for Vernon Hills. And their recommendations seem to be that in terms of trade association type activity for our village, that they would recommend the ICSC, the Council of Shopping Centers. And I did a little research after talking with them. Heather, Rowe of Libertyville, really spoke highly of this organization, and it is $100 to join, which is, perfect for us. And it has more villages and communities that are members than the Brokers Association. And they have, I think, more educational opportunities for us and more webinars. So it appears as if that may be, we need to discuss that, but, from what I've learned, it appears that may be an organization we might want to consider. The Libertyville and Vernon Hills were not members of the Business Brokers Association. It didn't really have much to add along those lines. And Roger, I don't know what you found out about the Business Brokers Association. It's my impression that that may not fit entirely with what we're trying to do. As I say, it doesn't appear many municipalities are members or educational, associations. And from what I've seen, they are for the ICSC. And it seems a pretty nominal fee to join. So that would be my recommendation. But I think you did more research into the Business Brokers Association. I don't know what you found out about that.
Well, my focus was the Restaurant Association, and just talking to them and getting a sense, which is kind of what I think you got from the Business Brokers Association, that they were large players more than small fill-in kinds of businesses, and they're expensive, relatively speaking. But I talked to the Economic Development Officer. She's an employee of the Village of Wheeling. Their situation, in my mind, is a little bit different because they call it Restaurant Row along Milwaukee Avenue. And so they were very active with the Restaurant Association. They said lots of good things about them in terms of keeping up to date and making good contacts. But again, they were a lot of money. But the thing that came across with all the contacts we have is that there is a lot to be gained from having constant networking with these people outside of our small circle. I think your idea about the whatever it is, sounds good. The shopping center.
Well, I mean,
Roger?
in particular, Heather Rowe of Libertyville seemed to speak pretty highly of that organization. And, you know, it's fairly encompassing. I mean, it will get, it gives us ideas of trends in the marketplace in terms of their educational opportunities and their webinars. And as I say, you know, once you're a member, you have access to all of that. So it would be additional resources for us, so we could consider doing the meetings, you know, being that at this point, most of the meetings that these organizations are doing are more online, you know, so there isn't a question about having, you know, to travel and that type of thing. So to me, it seems like that would be a good start for us in terms of getting us connected with, you know, a center of influence that could at least help us understand the trends in the marketplace. And
Okay.
I don't know,
Pam,
I was going
didn't
to ask
we
you.
already do this? I think we went to the ICSC that was the Navy Pier event, I think last year. Am I incorrect in that?
Mina, you're correct. We joined last year.
Yeah.
We are
well.
currently a member, and myself and Bridget Lane participated in the conference at Navy Pier last October.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
it has been, and it was I think a valuable experience, certainly worth what I think the membership is $100, and the deal making meeting was $125 for us. So if there are members of the EDC that would like to participate in that, I'd be more than happy and welcome them to be part of that.
All right, so I guess Roger, we already have that that connection to a center of influence on the ICSB. I don't know if we need to join. You were saying you looked into the restaurant association,
Right. But their meetings are relatively infrequent, although they've been doing more recently because of their situation, the restaurant situation. But I think it would be useful to have more of us dialed in somehow in terms of whatever this, I gotta get the ITSC, is it?
ICSC, yes. Well, I think then we'll try to, following what Dave is saying, to get more information on their webinars and their meetings, so that more of us have an opportunity to participate. And
maybe
certainly
if we
$100.
designate one of our members as a liaison for that association, so that
Right,
that person
right.
can make it a point to get the email that's coming out and be able to report back to all of us as to what's going on.
I'd be happy to do that.
Is that Denise saying you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Denise or Dave, do you have a sense of how often?
Why don't we say that Denise and Pam will work and be liaisons and keep everybody in the loop about what that organization is presenting and doing?
My thought is we have this on the agenda every time as is there any report about the ICSC? That sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. And if there's local events, we could consider what we're going to do. I mean, I think at this point, a lot of what's available is available online, webinars and meetings online. So, it probably gives us even more of an opportunity, at least to participate that way and report, eventually if there's meetings in this area, that would be nice, person-to-person meetings, that would be good too. But I don't think I don't think that'll happen in the near future. But we will report back. You know, you're right. I think that should be an agenda item. That definitely is a good center of influence, and it was highly, you know, it appears as if quite a few municipalities are members.
Okay,
At
so
least
basically almost every economic development agency I've ever worked with in my life is a member of ICSC. It's because the ICSC is basically, it stands for the International Conference of Shopping Centers. They host a huge mega conference in Vegas every year that everyone goes to, and that's kind of the background of that. So, you know, some of the players that go typically are big retail chains, and not all restaurants, but just retail operations. So, you know, I think it's great that since we're already a member, let's utilize that benefit. So just for future, I mean, I'm just saying that, yeah, I think it's great that we do this. But, you know, and if we can learn something from this center of influence, I think that's a great opportunity for us. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea since we already have a membership and I thought we had some good leads last time that when Dave went. So I think, yeah, let's continue with maybe some of the EDC like Pam can, you know, join and do some of these virtual seminars. I mean, I think that's a brilliant idea.
The next center of influence area that we were looking at was the Lake County Partners, which we've already had a lot of discussion with. And Mina and Mike, we're going to dig around a little bit about that and see where are we at with that.
Yeah, so we've decided that we were going to, we had a conversation with Ron Lance from Lake County Partners. It was Mike, Pam, and I, and we had a discussion with him, and we decided that we were going to have monthly calls with him, just kind of updates, just about what's going on and not. You know, based on our discussion, you know, we found out that Lake County Partners is updating their website. They're in the process of updating their website. I also noted that our village link in the current Lake County Partners website is inaccurate. It links to the old website. So I emailed Barbara and Ron, and it should be updated in the new website, but it won't be updated in the old one, which is currently up. But, you know, we talked about some of the properties that we had available and the link on our website once it's accurate. And we specifically talked about the South 15 and CFI and the one property that's owned by Abbott off of 83 in Gilmer. And Ron was interested in learning more about some of those. So he may, or, you know, we can give him some information on the CFI, and so hopefully we can update him on that. And then he also connected us to one potential business by a Long Grove resident that we are hoping that, I know Dave and Jim spoke with him relating to possible opportunities. And I believe Dave and Jim also gave him 3 other real estate opportunities outside of the historic downtown Long Grove area. And, you know, let's see if it pans out. He's a Long Grove resident that's been into robotics, and he started his own startup. I also introduced him to Mike Sarletto, and as I know that Arvind was looking for possible angel investor opportunities too, and hopefully that call and meeting went well, or will be going well. But yeah, so I think it'll be a great opportunity. Lake County Partners as the regional arm for economic development in the northern part of basically in Lake County. It's a great opportunity. So for when I normally do work, instead of working with the small communities themselves, I usually always work with a regional partner because they have much broader capabilities and information, and then they can typically point me to the smaller communities within their region. So I personally thought it was great, and I think between Pam, Mike, and I, one of us will be at least able to have calls or meetings in the future at least once a month with him, if not all of us. So Pam and Mike, if you guys wanted to jump in and see if there's anything else.
So the one big takeaway I had, and it's no surprise, he made the comment that by keeping him up to date on what we're doing and what's available in Long Grove, we're going to be on the radar, right? And there's just too much for him to keep track of for every village and town in Lake County. So being proactive means that it doesn't mean that he's going to send every lead our way, right? But what it means is that Lake County Partners is having conversations with potential new businesses, and they find one that's a fit, we're going to be on the radar. So right now, I don't think we are necessarily, but it'll just facilitate having him say, hey, this is a good fit for what Long Grove's got going on, and I think you should take a look at them. So again, definitely worth the conversation, and I think it's important to stay in touch monthly to start. Part of our discussion was how frequently we should be talking, and I suggested let's do it once a month at the beginning. And we find out that's too frequent, we're not adding value to each other's agendas every month. Maybe we make it every other month or quarterly, right? So it's definitely worth keeping that dialogue open.
So how do we handle this going forward? Is it enough to just say this is going to be on the agenda for a report from one of us every meeting in terms of what happened recently?
Sure. I mean, we could do, I mean, it doesn't have to be an elaborate, it could be a 2-minute update or a, we have a report. So sure, why not? Might as well if we've got these centers of excellence. And I believe Arvin was invited to join this call too today. I don't know if he will, but Arvind was invited by us, and then Mike sent him actually the dial-in information. So he may or may not be joining, but just FYI. So that was, again, that was our first lead from Lake County Partners just by being on their radar. And it just happened that he happened to be a resident of Long Grove. So if that continues and keeps going, then, we'll be doing great. So.
I had a discussion with him yesterday, and there's a number of things that he's pursuing in terms of where he's going to be, what stage he is. It's a early stage startup. He is in search of venture capital as well, but he needs a home. He needs to call something home. He's very well versed geographically too. He could be starting this up in California. Silicon Valley would probably be a logical, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants it to be Chicago based. But we talked about a number of different networks and opportunities for some potential funding. But he would like to look further in terms of a specific location. I know the Libertyville roll-up, the ex-Motorola spot was one of the things that he mentioned. But it seems a little too industrial for him. He'd like, I think, to be located a bit more skunk works. When I shared with them one of the ideas on CFI of urban agriculture, potential smaller restaurants, kind of a niche agricultural farm to fork type of theme, he jumped all over that. He really liked that idea. So anyway, the call went really well yesterday. We have 2 or 3 action items between us. I also introduced him to one of my business partners, Terry Flanagan. So I'll be doing some follow-up relative to business models and that sort of thing. So it was a good call.
Who's going to be the point person with him? Because I've got a couple of thoughts also for him. So I don't want him inundated by 6 members of the commission. What's the thoughts on this? Who's going to be the point person?
I can tell you, so EDC might be one thing, Erwin, but he is absolutely open to any ideas, opportunities to vet him. There are a couple of venture capital forums that I introduced him to. He'll probably be presenting on two Saturdays from now. It's kind of a safe zone vetting for entrepreneurs. So he is absolutely open to taking calls and reaching out to folks. So we could set something up tomorrow or the next day if you'd like.
Or I think I have his email. I could just introduce myself and make time, call him up. Okay.
Yeah. I echo Mike's comments that I thought he was very open to networking more and just kind of expanding. So
great.
That's why you were, and you can mention that because you were
good opportunities for us. It was nice to get that lead from Lake County Partners.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Dave, you're still on the call, aren't you? Dave?
I'm here.
Yes, I am. Sorry
Any
about
thoughts
that.
from anybody about coordinating between, especially with Lake County Partners, coordinating between village staff and the EDC people so that the village staff know what the EDC people are doing and we don't step on any, cross wires. Any thoughts on that?
Well, typically whenever I've got a phone call with someone like this, I follow it up with an email. So I can always copy you, Roger, or whoever the appropriate people might be with the EDC so that they're aware. And if it sounds like might be a group effort, we can set it up so that I send that to you. And if you want to forward it on to the EDC members or just set it up so that it's automatically going out to the full EDC, we can do that as well.
I could be the mailbox, but my concern is the other way, to make sure that all of us keep you or Jim up to date if we find something and we're going to try and push it.
Sure. Then I would just suggest the reverse of that. If you want to use me as the point person, and I'll distribute it to whoever should be aware of it on this side, that would be great.
So, when you get that next hot lead.
Well, I thought we established that protocol a couple of meetings ago too, that anytime we had a lead that we would, punt it to Dave.
Me too.
And keeping Dave and Bill informed, which is why when I forwarded that email and making that introduction, that's what I did. But I thought that was the initial protocol that we had sent anyway, or set a couple of months ago.
Thank you, yes.
Also, I don't know if Rita is on this call, but when there was some talk of having a board member also on kind of this panel, and Rita did express an interest in sitting on the Lake County Partners. So I'm not going to commit her without her being on the call, but she did express an interest.
I'm here.
She's on the call.
Oh,
I'm here.
Rita, did I have that wrong?
No, you have that right. I said, I'm happy to help. And I think we talked about team tagging some of the meetings or going together. Happy to.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Rita, we can, we'll make sure with the next call that we set up with Ron that you and Jenny, are you also interested in, at least, I'll just send it, we can send a meeting invitation to have Ron send a meeting invitation to everyone, and whoever can join and.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe between Rita and I, we can, at least one of us can be there.
Okay.
That sounds good. Great, thank you.
The last part on this agenda item was Erwin was going to talk about banks, possibly.
Yeah, maybe I could give you some input on that. I actually talked to Ron Lance at Lake County Partners just to get a listing of banks, local banks that he worked with, and some law firms. He sent me about a half dozen. So here's what I think would make sense. Would love some input. Is to establish communication. I can come up with a list of send them an email introducing ourselves with our links to our website. Request email saying if there's any opportunities your clients or are interested, please feel free to reach out to the EDC or the village to discuss further. Just like we got from Ron Lance. So I think we'll start out with putting together a piece of communication, and then if it's okay, we'll send that out via email to the bankers and lawyers in our communities, surrounding communities in Lake County. Does that make some sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
If we save this for follow-up in, say, a month, that
We lost Erwin.
I think so.
Yeah, I missed almost everything he said.
I think the gist of it was he spoke with Ron Lance and got a listing of all of the banks and attorneys in our community, small banks and attorneys in our community that he wanted to draft an email to send out. I think that was the gist of it because he kept cutting in and out, and he was going to start drafting that. Oh, there he is. Erwin's trying to connect back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I left you off with, I'll draft. Yeah, can you hear me now? Am I connected back?
Mm-hmm.
We can hear you.
You hear us. Well, as Erwin gets reconnected, Mike and I can't remember if anybody was going to look at the process we've been talking about for some time about creating a easy to use flow chart for people who are going to move their business to the village, and see how it sits currently and where it might be held. Did we make any progress there?
No, I need to, Dave, I need to shoot you an email and set up a time where you and I can talk. I really need your input on, the flow that you'd like to see of any leads coming from us back through the village. So I'll email you after this meeting and we'll set up a time to have a quick 15-minute conversation. Should cover it.
Perfect.
Mike, you might want to talk with Mina too about this. Mina, weren't you involved with this kind of effort before?
I suggested that we needed to fix it, but
I'll set up a quick call with you too.
You're better off just talking to Dave because
Okay.
I was personally coming from a homeowner permitting building.
Oh, got it. Okay,
So,
no worries.
Good deal. Okay. We have Eric Flanagan here from Weiss Development, or Weiss Properties, I'm sorry. And the idea was to just talk to them a little bit, hear about what their ideas are, and see if we can brainstorm a little about what we might do immediately or in the near future to facilitate their development of that property, make it productive again. Eric, are you there?
Still here.
All right. Or is yours for a while if you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on there. Mike, go on.
Yep. So, thanks for having me. Certainly, I've had some offline conversations with a few people already, but really what Weiss Property does is we take, older buildings and renovate and reposition them in the market. So we do have a history of new construction, but for the most part, we're repurposing old warehouses, lofted buildings, tired properties, and renovating and repositioning them in the market as more multi-tenant spaces for a variety of size of tenants. So we had our eyes on the CFI site for quite a while. We visited it a number of times, and we're happy with that site for what it is right now. So we certainly plan on bringing it up to speed, getting it caught up on any of the renovations that it needs. But we like the building for what it is already. We like the site for what it is. So our goal in the short and medium term is really just to reposition that so it's ready for a variety of tenants. Our business model is very much made up of multi-tenant spaces of various sizes. So certainly at CFI, there could be a larger tenant, a collection of smaller tenants, all a collection of smaller tenants. We then do also like to, have amenities. So the idea of keeping the kitchen space or keeping the theater space and making that available for, some of the urban agriculture, farm to table, at least having there be food on site because it's, kind of isolated a little bit in that regard, having the theater be available. So we really like to bring amenities to our tenant. We are not a Kemper Lakes type operation. We try to be a middle market in terms of the rents that we charge, but we like to offer amenities with that. So people certainly feel like we bring them a lot of value, and we're able to bring in some smaller tenants that traditionally wouldn't necessarily consider larger office spaces. So some of our other buildings in Park Ridge, we have a variety of counselors, attorneys, accountants, and then, other buildings that we have, McKesson are a larger client. So we're relatively nimble. We have an in-house interior designer. We do all our own plans, tenant build outs, construction. So, we're well positioned to customize space and have a lot of efficiencies in that regard for doing it rather nimbly. And so really, I think more than most, we're probably open to a lot more suggestions in terms of what might work for the space, coming from community groups like yourself. So we've definitely had conversations with Jim and let him know in terms of the village, what it is that we do. And I've had some other conversations, with Mike, with Rita, and other people who have been letting me know what some of the, historical plans have been for the site. So a lot of that stuff interests us. And certainly listening to your meeting here today, I'm very impressed with what you're all doing in terms of bringing business to Long Grove and the discussions you're having with the Lake County partners. And so that's exactly the wheelhouse that we would hope to be able to collaborate with you all, is essentially narrowing the sphere of potential tenants and businesses that might be interested in the site, facilitating some conversations with local business owners, local business leads, broader leads and introductions, such as, the Lake County partners, in which we might be able to have discussions with potential tenants about making that space work for them. But also then, I think some of the broader community ideas, we do like to really be a resource for the community. So whether it's a way to incorporate farmers markets or using the space or whatever it might be, drive-in movies, that kind of stuff, we're definitely clued in and open to that. And like I said, our operation is relatively nimble enough and we're local enough that all of those things are a good opportunity. So I would say overall, and certainly I'll follow up to this group with some of the things that we would hope you would be able to help us with. I think it's really just narrowing down the potential occupants that we might have for that space, connecting us more on a local level, rather, or in addition to us obviously going out and marketing the property for what it is. I think it's making that sphere a lot more local, a lot more pointed. And if conversations are already happening on a business development level, then we would love to be part of that in terms of facilitating, businesses coming to Long Grove or businesses expanding in Long Grove. I think we're a unique property in Long Grove. It seems from our analysis of the zoning map and other things that it is almost like one of the only properties like this in Long Grove. So if we can, collaborate in bringing some people to that space, that's something that we would very much appreciate and be excited to have those conversations.
Thoughts, anybody? Comments?
So Eric, just curious, like what's your timeline then, or what's your anticipated timeline to try to move some of this forward, obviously?
I think there's some basic work that we want to do, and that's kind of, ongoing. Typically, we don't over leverage our properties to the point that we are on extremely time pressured timelines. So in this case, short of the kind of regular updates that would need to happen for the position, for the property to be walkable again and to see the space, I think we would prefer for it to be a little more of a vanilla box. And then we definitely, part of what we do is, we sell tenants on the tenant upgrades that we provide. So we don't want to do too much too fast. We don't want to say, here's the space and now we need to fill it. We would much rather have conversations with people that have specific needs and ideas for their space. And then we really do a great job of kind of I guess, reeling them in on that personalized collaboration for the space that they need. So there are conversations going on in the background with a number of different people for potentially using that space. Those timelines are more medium-term timelines, but we're preparing sample floor plans, renderings. A lot of our marketing is marketing in concept, and then trying to get someone, obviously, that needs a specific space to want to do that build out with us. So.
I have a question, Eric, about accommodating specific broadband or internet needs of tenants. What are the plans for that?
I think the plans are in this environment, and I'm not super clued in on technical aspects, but I know in all our other buildings, I mean, everyone is getting the best business quality Wi-Fi and connectivity that's required, to have any type of business like that in terms of supporting servers and networks. So all I can say is they will have what they need, and if they need more, we can get it to them. But in terms of like an exact specification, I don't have that right now for you. Only to say that I don't think there's a commercial lease in the world now that exists without there being a huge expectation of full and excellent connectivity.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll expand just briefly on, some of the ideas that have gone around. Obviously, with the space, any idea could stick, right? The idea of incubators, of hubs, of multi-tenant. We've certainly explored the idea of having smaller staffed offices for what are called the allied health professionals, whether that be psychologists, child psychologists, OTs, school counselors, marriage and family therapists, a lot of individuals that would typically maintain a smaller office or a home office. It's such a nice setting there. The parking is abundant. We have definitely considered making essentially suites available for those types of professionals that would be staffed then by a front desk that we would provide. So, that would be an idea for part of the space. We've also explored the idea of, what are people doing for test preparation, for high school test preparation, college test preparation, things that require a larger space, tutoring spaces. So we like the idea of there being traffic to and from the building in terms of those services. So that's one idea we've considered. Obviously building out, we would love to fill half of that space with a single tenant. Colleges and universities and urban agriculture are things that Mike's shared with me, but we do like the idea of having a mix, and certainly trying to draw tenants from businesses and professions that might otherwise be smaller tenants elsewhere in buildings or in spaces that have no amenities. So like I mentioned, counselors, therapists, psychologists, school tutors, social workers, anyone in the allied health space that would otherwise be in a smaller space, attorneys, accountants, smaller businesses where we really try to get those tenants in our other buildings, and they enjoy our other buildings because they get a staffed front desk, they get a space to have lunch that's on site. And so in this case, the food component's been cool because it's like, well, if we can actually leverage that existing kitchen into being a functional space for whether it be farm to table or startup restaurants, or, if we can make that space something more functional than just us providing catering, that would be exciting as well, I think. And obviously great marketing tool as well, but also something that I think, you know, for that restaurant space that you were all talking about, having spaces where people can come, use professional kitchens, cook, and I guess try what their concepts are in a nice setting like this would be excellent. So we try to really offer resources for those smaller tenants at rental rates that are attractive for them or on par with some of the less functional spaces that they exist in right now. So that would be a great, you know, a great angle for us, and something that we find, you know, props up our business model as well. You know, we've been able to afford to lose anchor tenants in buildings and have the building continue to run on its smaller tenants while we have more time to sign good leases with larger tenants. We're obviously not kind of incredibly enthusiastic about having one tenant in a space like this, because for whatever need in the future, when that tenant leaves, I think these buildings find themselves in a little bit of trouble. So we like the idea of dividing the space into larger tenants, medium-sized tenants, and then essentially staffed suites for smaller tenants. So not temporary tenants, but we like the idea of giving smaller tenants resources that they otherwise wouldn't have in the spaces that they typically exist right now.
Yeah, that really, you know, seems to be a great model, particularly in this environment, you know, where, you know, there's a lot of relocation going on in terms of how businesses are going to operate and what spaces they're going to need and retrofit. I mean, it's a good time, you know, because there's a lot of remodeling going on with businesses.
And I think what we're going to see as well is I think we're going to see the downtown real estate market change. You know, my wife works for a large revenue management, you know, revenue cycle company called R1. And, you know, they're starting to, like, you know, officially announce that they're attempting to exit their commercial real estate spaces, both downtown and in Arlington Heights, because they were probably set up to operate online, are operating online, and are like, hey, everything's going all right. Let's do this. And I think what, you know, quarantine has also done is it's restructured families in a different way, where I think maybe people that commuted or have been commuting for 30 years are saying, I don't need to do that. You know, I kind of knew it was a waste of 4 hours of my day, but now I really know it's a waste of 4 hours of my day. So I wonder if what we'll see is people that have been commuting downtown into some of those smaller offices. Again, attorneys are a big one. You know, they maintain windowless small offices within, you know, 3 blocks of the court. And I think, you know, there are going to be a number of individual practitioners like that, or small firms that are saying, hey, you know, I want to be local to my home, but I don't necessarily want to give up the office space that I have. I don't want to work at home, but I want to be local to my home. And so, you know, certainly the local connection is huge for us, because we would love to know, because those are the folks that aren't necessarily clued into the commercial real estate market or looking in the places we would be, you know, listing and advertising. So that's an example of, you know, some of the information that you could give us that would be helpful. It's hearing about maybe local businesses, local business owners, local professionals that are considering or would consider a move closer to home. And at least we could have a conversation with them about how we might be able to serve their needs.
Eric, Eric, this is Mike Sarletto. You just triggered something with that last comment relative to the demographics. I think when we met, I had referenced the comp plan revision. And as part of that, the front end of that did a sort of an in-depth on the demographics of the village. And there was some interesting information that came out. For example, I believe executive level employees spent on average 2.5 to 3 days working remote from wherever their office was. That little tidbit alone, you know, led to a bunch of speculation around, well, where do they get office supplies? How do they make a copy? You know, a bunch of other things related to that, the bandwidth relative to connectivity, data storage, and a bunch of other things. So maybe, and I had suggested that, you know, take a look at at least the front end of the comp plan, And if you haven't done that, that might be a good place to start relative to the demographics. The information is a bit dated now, but it may be a good place to start.
Did you share that comp plan with me, Mike?
It's available. I believe it's available online, and as well. Well, Dave or Denise can direct you to the final version, but I believe it's available through the website.
Okay.
Right.
It is. I'll shoot you an email with it just to save you time.
Okay, great.
And Eric, I believe the portion that Mike's referring to is the community profile. That was actually one of the appendices that was part of that plan. You probably should look at the whole thing, but I believe that's where the data that Mike was referencing is located.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, the data certainly, I think, reinforces the intuition that we're feeling right now, and that I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing as a result of, you know, the way people have had to reevaluate the way that they're working in light of COVID. I think what's going to take that over the top is not necessarily knowing that it's happening or having it being supported by the data, which is of course reassuring, but it's really having the local connection to capture the real time shift. And that's really where I think the connection between us and you guys is going to be absolutely huge. It's, you have your pulse really on the community. We'd like to be a part of the community and a functioning part of it. So I think the connection there in terms of you guys being able to share what you're hearing on the ground and where this might present opportunities, and us being able to you know, have that introduction, have that conversation, I think is just going to be a tremendous help to us.
Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Yes, my comment is welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you. And I would disclose that because of just, you know, the way we're set up, we really like to be involved in what we're looking at for a long time before we get it, and we like to get it at a good price. So that's certainly, the long game here worked out really well for us. So obviously we're going to have a totally open line of communication now to us, but I don't want you to be concerned if, you know, you're driving by the site every day and you're not seeing like a massive hum of activity or, you know, 30 construction workers. We typically, you know, that's not typically how we operate. We're not just going to flip the site, get a bunch of pictures, and then just blast it like that. We tend to find people that have a need first and then work with them to create the space that they need. So, you know, this is a huge priority for us. And obviously you could reach out to me at any time with questions. But like I said, it's not quite like a new construction site where, you know, one day you drive by and there's some wrecking balls and some masons and all that good stuff. You know, a lot of stuff will be going on inside, behind the scenes, and obviously, you know, just waiting to make the connections and build out that space as best we can for longer term tenants.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I mean, I want to echo what Rita said. We're very happy that you share your ideas with us, and it is it's an exciting prospect for us, and we'll see. You know, definitely, we'll help you operate in any way we can. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that covers our agenda. Anybody, new business, anything that you want to pick up this morning?
One thing that I wanted to bring up just kind of briefly, I've been exchanging emails with Rita about where we're at with the bike path projects, whether we have applied for grants, and if so, for what. I think there were a number of bike paths. I shared with Rita some notes Eric Russell had left with me about 3 potential bike paths, and I just I'm not clued in on what we have done, what grants we've pursued, which paths we've been trying to develop. And could you help with that, Rita?
Yes. Now I better understand the question. I thought you were asking about the most recent one, the one that is in process actually between 83 and Old McHenry on Robert Parker Coffin. That grant was accepted. The engineering is done. Dave has had the chat with the homeowners whose properties, we would need easement agreements from. The other, I think what you're asking is what comes next? Is that
right?
Okay, so we had talked about a path, asking for part of the DCEO grant money for a path from Route 22 to Old 53, or at least the northern border of the downtown area, because that would be millions. And on our list of 3 top priorities, that came in third. But that certainly is one that we would really love to do. And there are a lot of times when we get small amounts of money, we will seize the opportunity to create the smaller paths that are links, links between 1 or 2 of the medium size or large ones, to just bring them all together. Jim Hogue has the best map I've seen, which he shared with the Pathway Committee. And I will get copies of that to you. And insofar as what are we doing, I watch the available grants that are announced. There's a site that the village is having trouble with word retrieval, that we're affiliated with, where a website where it appears like once a month, announcing grants that are available. And sometimes it's the same thing month after month after month. And then all of a sudden there's some new ones on there. So those are the ones that we jump on. Currently, there hasn't been anything that popped up that sometimes they will match funds, and we are cautiously keeping our purse strings pretty tight until we see how the economy shakes out as a result of the virus. But that's the process that we're using.
Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. And if we can help you in that regard, Rita, we can work with you. And if something comes up, we had explored the idea last meeting, I believe, of talking with Metro Properties and limiting their proposal to just this bike path issue, because we have already applied for grants with regard to our 2 top priorities, and they're pending grants that we have applied for the resurfacing of
Stemple.
Cuba. Yeah, the Stemple. That's pending. So, and the water connection with
Cuba.
local.
Yeah, Cuba Road, and then and then we got a grant separately. Bill Jacobs did for Stemple, and then obviously we're still waiting to hear about the water connection.
Right.
So we have, as Mina is saying, we have applied for grants for our 2 top priorities in terms of what we were looking to do, and Bill Jacobs did help with getting a third grant for the Semple parking resurfacing. So what's left on the table, I mean, that's why I've been talking with you about it, Rita, is this bike path issue. And we just wanted to, get up to speed on that and see if we can help in any way. The last meeting we did talk about engaging Metro Properties. And, they did give us a proposal for the grants, but we've already pursued the ones that we've discussed. So we're down to this bike path issue. And so my inquiry was whether we need to engage them further on that, or do you feel that, the resources we have are sufficient for us to identify these grants?
The board has discussed the Metro strategies a couple of times. We did chat again with, help me, Mike, I forget the lady's name, but we did, that was maybe 3 weeks ago, I think, that we chatted with her again. And she clarified the questions that I had, which we'll represent to the board, put it up for discussion again to clarify exactly what they do for how much money. And certainly the more resources, the better that we have. It again, currently, right now, our outlook is something that doesn't require matching grants. And the El McHenry piece is a big one. It's not the only one. We have no bike paths connecting northern Long Grove to much of anything. Diamond Lake Road is nice because it has a wide shoulder, but that's not really a path. Can't take strollers.
Right.
You can't take, baby strollers and things like that on there. So the need is bigger than the availability of funds at this time.
Yeah, and it's a good time to pursue that. Although like you're pointing out, we would want to look at grants that don't require matching. But the need is definitely there, and it seems particularly in light of COVID and people's activities, biking has become, if anything, like more of a.
And as a matter of fact, Jan Healy from the Park District, who lives on the edge of Turner Woodlands, said that she has never seen the number of people at Reed Turner as she has during the COVID shelter in place time. She said, it's absolutely incredible. And I said, you should put a donation box out there.
No, it's definitely a good time for that. It's a great opportunity and potential business opportunity for us to bring more people in, and who knows, maybe even a bike shop.
Well, yeah, like we used to have. We had that terrific bike shop for years, and he left Long Grove and went to Buffalo Grove because he needed much larger space, which was not available at the time. This was probably 15, maybe 20 years ago. So
yeah, that's interesting because they're doing very well, and there's also a bike shop in Libertyville. I wonder if they would consider expanding because they're just doing incredibly.
That's interesting. That would be worth it. That would be worth making a contact.
Right.
Super. Well, I'll drop in and see what they have to say. Got nothing to lose.
Yeah, no, that would be great because they, it definitely is a big trend, that we could hopefully, capitalize on. And I know that it's a small shop in Libertyville, but maybe maybe that's an opportunity for them to expand.
Right. That's like Mike's Bikes in Palatine. Small shop, huge following, huge.
Yeah, right. I mean, they've got a huge following, and I know my daughter bought a couple of bikes there, and it was like they were completely sold out. I mean, they had to just, everything's on order. Everything in the world is on order. But if we can tap into that would be great.
I was about to say, if the empty racks at all the big box stores, where there normally are just rows and rows of bikes, are any indication, people are riding like crazy right now. Or at least they're buying the bikes anyway.
Well, and
Right.
the supply chain has been interrupted big time, so they can't get this, they can't get the inventory is another problem or an issue now, so.
Right.
To add to this, Lake County Department of Transportation reported that the usage on the North Shore bike path that goes east-west from the lakefront, I believe you can actually make it all the way over to Lakewood Forest Preserve, has an 80% increase in ridership because they've been taking traffic counts out there.
Hey, another place you guys might want to try, there's a bicycle shop on Butterfield Road. I guess it's in Mundelein, called M&M Cyclery. It's been there for years. It's right next to the Mambo Italiano.
Yes, I know where they are.
Yeah, that might be another one that would be, I bet you they get a lot more business over by us than they do at their current location.
Right. Yeah, definitely like a downtown location here would be great for them.
Yep.
Hey, one quick question, and pardon my ignorance if this is a stupid question because I'm not up to speed on it, but now that Route 53 is temporarily stalled, does anyone know what the state has planned for the property they currently own that was, going to be used to extend Route 53 through Lake County? Do we know if they're selling that property? Are there any plans for repurposing, or are they just sitting on it with the hopes of rejuvenating the Route 53 expansion? Because if that connects, if that goes all the way through Long Grove, it might be a good opportunity if the state has any interest in repurposing that for something more environmentally friendly, like a bike path. Who knows? And again, I don't know anything about it, but it's just an idea.
Long Grove has been participating for nearly 2 years in a what initially started out anti-53, extension effort into now a repurposing and green corridor sort of focus. And it is made up of a consortium of a number of different organizations, Open Lands, Sierra Club, and a bunch of others. One of the efforts is to enlist additional corridor, what used to be the corridor, community involvement, expand beyond just Hawthorne Woods and Long Grove. But that has been working now for now about, what would you say, Rita, at least a year and a half in earnest. And one of the ideas is to, the belief is that there will be a vacuum at some point in time. And there won't be a whole lot of ideas out there relative to either repurposing, that sort of thing. But it's a chess game, it's not checkers. The ownership, what is owned by the, not necessarily Tollway, but Illinois Department of Transportation and others, is kind of an interesting mosaic, if you will. And so there are strategies afoot to hopefully influence some of the political oriented policymaking, and as well keeping tabs on what are the plans. And so rest assured, there are people looking at this on a very regular basis. The village did engage with Barbara Klipp, who's been tracking this for quite some time, and as well our ex-village president, Tony Dean, who basically heads up this little group. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday. We are tracking it and trying to figure out exactly, when certain triggers are going to be pulled and how that's going to work. But it's a very good question. And pathways is kind of an interesting perspective too. The more that I think east-west pathways can be constructed across the corridor, and one of the objectives is also, 40 years from now, when we're all long gone, trying to ensure that some governor at the time looks at this beautiful green corridor up to Wisconsin and says, hey, here's $2 billion, go build me a road. I mean, what we want to do is kind of cut this off permanently through Lake County. So there's a lot of objectives there, but it's a very, very good question. I think the latest setback for those who were pro road, I think is a good one. And now is the time to come up with the ideas relative to repurposing.
And nothing's going to happen before the election, that's for sure.
No.
Right. Well, thanks for that update, Mike. That's good to know.
Yeah. That's why I attend these calls.
Bye, we love you.
There's something you realize
We're happy
we're part of a much larger group.
No.
What was that, Roger?
No, we're part of a much larger group that's working on all these problems of Long Grove. It's nice to know that we're just a little part of a much bigger engine and can help the efficiencies. We don't have to solve it all ourselves, but we need to know what others are doing so that we spend our efforts productively.
Yeah.
Right.
So can I ask, just a quick change topic, but so now that we have all these vacancies on the EDC, are we trying to actively pursue some additional bodies to fill those vacancies?
I had a discussion with Bill Jacobs, and his reaction was that he, at this point, because he's got to make the appointments, he likes the size as it currently sits. His reaction was, well, lots of people get hard to manage. I don't know that we've had problems with size of our group. We're fortunate because the people who are here are people who are very willing to roll up their sleeves and work. But what's your thought, Mina? Should we get some pressure to build?
No, I mean, no, I'm just curious since, I mean, we've always had, I mean, we've lost 2 this past year, so, and I'm just wondering, like, do we keep it?
I raised the same thing with him, and that was his reaction. I'd share that with you. If we as a group want to make a motion to ask him to appoint new, certainly he'd take some action. Or if you've got some ideas about people who you think would be great additions with new skills in different areas, that's certainly worth considering.
If I could maybe add a comment, and Roger, you just tripped on it, is as opposed to the size, I would encourage the group to look at gaps in skills. We have been in search of marketing, the point person relative to the whole social media engagement. I mean, there's a number of skills. There's the IT piece, although Mike Elliott's pretty strong in that area. But the idea was to populate the board with those necessary skills that as a team rounds out the team, so it's a much more efficient and effective team. So perspective was really important, but I would focus, as opposed to the size, I would focus on the specific skills needed now. Eric, the loss of Eric, I think on transportation, that's a keyhole. The nature of Long Grove's, reach, it borders on many very well-developed communities, and it's the traffic, transportation, the movement of people, goods, and that sort of thing, I think that is a key advantage to Long Grove. It touches virtually everything, east, west, north, south. So the transportation thing, I think, would be key. The marketing, sales, and then the third would be the IT. I would focus on the skills and make it a much more, I tried to do that with you. I mean, the team is sitting here right now.
Yeah.
You all were marketed for specific reasons, right? But that may be a perspective that if you could consider, that'd be great.
No, and for me, it wasn't necessarily about trying to refill every position, or we've actually never gotten to the hilt, obviously, but more of a, if we are, I mean, I would also suggest that I thought that the loss of Eric and now Rob, I mean, I think those are tough losses. So if we do, I would also recommend trying to get more women on the committee as well, and then trying to get some more diversity on the committee. as well as, you know, if we do continue, I mean, obviously right now it's a tough time to try to get anyone to do anything because everyone's busy with trying to homeschool, e-learning, and work at the same time, and the uncertainty of everything. But, you know, for me, it's the fact that we've lost 2 in the last 4 months is tough, obviously for different reasons. But, you know, it just makes you wonder, like, you know, why? I mean, obviously with Eric, he had to because he moved out of the state, but, you know, and we lost Dave, and that was last year. And then, so it's, I don't know. I think it's the, why are we losing people? And then also, since Rob held the position of vice chair, who are you going to put in place of, you know, do we need a vice chair? Roger, can you just stay as the chair and not need a vice chair? You know, and since Pam took over with the secretary, that's awesome. So just kind of curious kind of where we're going with that, because that's something I think we should be addressing anyway.
Any other thoughts? I mean, I'd like to see us actively recruit somebody in engineering, somebody in transportation, somebody, you know, who works for the Department of Transportation if they're in the village. On the IT level, it probably would be useful to have somebody who's more knowledgeable about information technology infrastructure.
Right.
But
I guess we can all explore whether, you know, there's individuals in the village that we know that would fill those needs.
I mean, that would be interesting. The commission.
I guess Irwin had a poor connection. It happens.
Okay. Well, just
about putting on the agenda for our next meeting, a report from everybody on whether they've managed to think of anybody who would be a good candidate to join.
That sounds good.
You know, with the idea that we're going to look for transportation engineering, we're going to look for information technology. Maybe we're going to look for somebody in financial services, somebody in the not necessarily retail, but in the banking industry. Would that be a good skill?
Right.
Anything else in terms of categories anybody can think of?
Well, one last comment regarding timing. By the time you need somebody is not the time to begin a search. I mean, at least this is a focus, can be running in the background, and you have the luxury of being able to select somebody who really wants to be here, and number 2, possesses the skills that the team is looking for. If you don't have that process running in the background, it creates gaps, and you're going to end up in a situation where you're subcritical mass, and then you're scrambling around trying to get people in. And I don't think that's how you want to, that's not sustainable.
Consider the process started.
Yeah, get the process started. You know, and I think that's good. We've identified areas of need, and we can all be, you know, working on that in the background. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay. Anything else? Perhaps a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn. This is Mina Hall.
Is there a second?
I second Erwin Steinberg.
Any opposed? There's no opposition. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. That was a good, productive meeting. I see that our friend from Weiss Developments has left the meeting. Sullivan's Law Directory has lawyers listed by village. It would be very easy to go and pull out the email addresses of all the lawyers who say they're located in Long Grove. I'm thinking that I'm going to draft some kind of a letter to all those people saying, just as a preliminary, have you considered moving into Long Grove? We've got some possible development. Would you be? If we could put something on their plate that says, hey, we've got all these local attorneys who are interested in having, I don't think that would hurt.
I think it's a good idea. Maybe you could also include, CPAs.
Well, sell
So
it.
I really did like what Eric had to say about, I think it is a good time for, that kind of concept, an office complex that provides some amenities. So many people are working from home, but then you find there's areas that are, you have gaps, and place where you can have meetings with a client, or, I asked about broadband, that's a deficiency for a lot of people, being able to have the sufficient equipment in their homes. And I just think it's a good concept. And I think you're right, Roger, if we can kind of jump on that and introduce people to the idea that here it is, that CFI is being redeveloped. And there's going to be office space that has amenities available, where you could have meetings with clients. Food, you talked about food service. I'm assuming meeting rooms and that kind of thing. So I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Well, we're done, aren't we?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day, everyone.
You too.